go. Pixels and Plough, episode 9. Eric Whitaker, shred, polychord. We're done.
We're done now.
Just a two-man job today. Dougie and my good friend Reece Denton from Pixels and Sound. Together we make Pixels and Plough.
What's up, guys?
Not as catchy as the Captain Planet song, I tell you that now, but we try. Today we're going to be talking about advanced rhythmic techniques. We call it progressive rhythms. Both Reece and I are playing a lot of progressive rock, progressive metal, more adventurous types of music, and I guess discovering advanced rhythms has been a part of our journey in composition and playing with other people. I know for me personally, it really threw me off a lot as a 4/4 Metallica kiddie, Blink-182 Green Day boy. I think the most advanced thing I ever heard really would have been 6/8.
Yeah.
Or the occasional 3/4 when I was looking to play some waltzes on recorder back in grade 5. So
yeah.
Having to play stuff in odd time signatures completely fried my brain. I found it extremely hard. I remember the first examples of going through some Anubis material with with the guys, and it just completely blew my mind. I remember my out of the frying pan into the fire, just being baptized by fire of David Eaton was. He brought me over one day and just loaded up this chord progression in 7/8 or 7/4 with non-stop augmented chords and just said improvise this, and that was pretty fucking daunting, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet.
And they seemed to have a mastery at the time when I joined the band of executing quite hard rhythmic, I guess quite advanced rhythmic structures, but it still sounded very predictable and sounded very grooving and very straight. So that's probably what threw me off even more. It wasn't like something manic or wacky that I had to learn that I could remember by how wacky it sounded. It just was so straight feeling. And nowadays I can't really even imagine struggling so much with it, because it's become such a big part of my vocabulary and what I write and what feels even natural to me, that it's no longer so much of a challenge, but there's always more stuff to learn. How about your background with it, man?
Yeah, well, I consider drums to be my main instrument, and despite the fact that I actually started out on guitar, I don't know, when I got onto drums, that seemed to be the one that I flourished with more. But to start off with, it was mostly 4/4, like you. I was also a lot into the hardcore stuff. I was a hardcore kid. So I guess my first...
Sorry.
I guess my first foray into playing around with time a bit more was, I remember the very first one I did was for the HSC. I did Hey John, What's Your Name Again by The Devil Wears Prada. And yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But all in 4/4, but there's a whole bunch of tempo changes. So that was my first sort of trying to get my head around time. And then I actually got into like Dream Theater and stuff like that. That's where I properly got into like alternate time signatures and stuff.
And just for the listeners out there, the 7 of you, when you're talking about tempo changes, you're not talking about just like simple divisible ones in there as well, right? You're not talking about half times or doubles. I know like in some of that hardcore around mid 2000s, 2010s, there's a lot of stuff where it's like big tempo jumps, like nothing to do with the original tempo. You just kind of have to feel it out.
Yeah, very out of the blue. Yeah.
But I guess going from there, like when was the stuff where you started playing Dream Theater? That's a pretty strong first introduction into the odd time signatures.
Yeah, kind of blew my mind.
Devil Wears Prada. Into Dance Fraternity, it's a bit of a jump.
Well, I think that was actually one of the first Dream Theater songs I heard, Dance of Eternity. Oh, wow. So I was right, fucked.
Okay, well, I was saying before that the odd time signatures aren't so challenging now, but that would still destroy me probably. Yeah, that's changing like every couple of bars. That's when it becomes a lot more tricky. You really have to know your shit then.
That would still take some studying for sure. Yeah.
I remember that was like the nerdy bragging song where it's like, oh my God, man, I know a song that changes time signatures 152 times in 3 minutes. Do
Yeah.
anything with more time changers.
Yeah.
Right. Were you one of those guys?
No, no.
Yeah, that's good, man.
But I certainly came across those people.
That wasn't just an original piece of dank comedy.
Yeah.
Or was it?
There it is.
Oh, awful. All right, man. Well, did you have do we want to go through maybe some of the basic odd times? We were talking briefly then about I guess 6/8. 6/8. Did you want to give an example of that one, or maybe talk a bit about 6/8, because that's probably the first non-4/4 one that people will encounter.
Yeah, and it's a tricky one, and you know, when I introduce it to students, or you know, just people come across it for the first time, maybe with already some experience with 3/4, they're like, well, what's the difference? You know, it's still got 6 quavers in there.
I felt trapped at first as well when I first heard of it. I didn't get it.
Yeah, me too. And there was definitely some stuff early on that I mistakenly notated out as 3/4. Should have been 6/8. But basically, the difference is where the accents are, right?
Yeah, I guess you could divide up 6/8 in a few different ways, but nearly always it's done in 2 groups of 3, right? When we're talking about compound meter.
That's right. Yeah, accenting on the 1 and the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And actually,
that'd be 3/4. I don't know if that's coming through all right, but where you've got 3 divisions of 2 instead.
Yeah. Actually, to make more obvious, I'll do them side by side, keeping the 8th notes, the quavers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Good example.
Yeah.
So people have probably heard that. That's actually quite common and quite prevalent even within popular music.
Yeah.
You probably find most things aren't in 3/4. I find that quite uncommon. Like at least in pop music, maybe back in the day, it might have been a bit more common. Maybe like 70s and 60s when it was a bit more liberal with the compositions that could get out there. But I find things seem to move in groups of 2. So even if it's triplets where you got the shuffle or the swing happening, you're feeling things in 2s or 4s usually.
Yeah.
While we're on topic here, though, do you ever use some of the other ones like 9/8 and 12/8, where it's pretty much like 3/4 or 4/4 grouped in triplets?
I actually do have an example here that is in 9/8. If you'd like me to go through it.
Yeah, let's go through that, man. Because 9/8's not one I use very often at all.
Yeah, this is probably the only example I have of myself using it. I'll just get it up now. It's actually off of an EP that just went onto Spotify today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the Prologue Epilogue EP, which was originally released in 2014, but it's on Spotify now.
That wasn't up there before. I didn't know that.
Nah, yeah. And this is specifically the song I've learned to know. The main riff is in 9/8. Get some volume.
Oh, nice. That one there. That's more of just a standard subdividing of 9/8, right?
Yeah. It's I guess you feel it mostly as 5 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what happened in this one was I treated it a bit differently. If you go to the verse, you've got a straight, I say straight, but it's explicitly 9/8 in the way that the drums are played. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you first hear that rhythm, the underlying ba 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 ba, you actually hear it with the drums still playing that on the bass drum, but the hands, it's almost like they're playing in 9/4.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got that the standard rock thing of like the snare drum on every second cymbal hit. I'll play that for you now.
Reece, that's a great example, man, because it touches on something we wanted to talk about as well, the idea of polymeters.
Yeah,
Where you've got two simultaneous grooves running at once and they eventually catch up with each other.
Yeah.
So in this example here, you've got a 9/8 measure, and you've also got a 9/4 measure, and it's going to take 2 bars of the 9/8 measure to catch up with the full 9/4 measure.
Yeah. And I found it was interesting because not only for what you just stated then, but usually when you come across polymeters played in this way on the drums, usually it's the other way around, sort of a steady groove on top, but the polymeter in the bass drum.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and also because of the way it cycles, you end up with a snare drum on the downbeat of the second bar.
But this is I guess a good way of doing it if you want to have that constant nod, where you're feeling it's the pulse the whole time and that doesn't get broken up, you don't get anything disjointed.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to be a music major or anything to headbang to it, although it's not really that heavy.
Oh, it's a good example. So, do we want to talk a little bit about the difference between polymeters and polyrhythms? Like, I guess the way I see it is polymeter, you have, I guess, a groove or a rhythmic pattern, possibly in two or more meters. We'll use your example, 9/8, 9/4 again, where they just start at the same time and they finish whenever they're naturally going to repeat. So you're pretty much repeating them until they catch up with each other. So the way I would look at it is I break it down into the lowest common multiple of divisions. So like 8 notes in that example, you've got 9 eighth notes in one thing, and you've got 18 eighth notes, and you figure out how many times does it take for 9 to get to 18. It's lucky that you just used a 4 and an 8 one there, where they just work out over 2 bars.
So it ends up pretty neat.
Yeah, like you couldn't really give this as an alternative where you're saying it's like a 9/9 polyrhythm. That really wouldn't work out.
Yeah,
it'd just be really 9/9/4 split into eighth notes. That would be a 9/8 and a 9/4 going together.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I guess the difference normally with polyrhythms themselves is that you're trying to fit 2 different measures over the top of each other so they finish within the one amount of time. It's not like you're playing catch up and doubling one measure until they eventually catch up. It's like compressing that idea and squashing it into one bar.
Yes, that's right.
I've got an example of a polymeter as well here. I'll give an example. I mean, polymeter, it's something I do, I guess, in both bands, but it's not something I'm always doing, because sometimes it does break up the groove a little bit, depending how busy you're getting with it. And I guess it depends what meters you're playing at the same time and which instruments you're giving them to. That can make a big difference too. So
Yeah, that's
the
right.
example I have here is from a song called Hunting Is to Women. It's from the first Amina album.
Great song.
Yeah, so this is maybe a little bit more advanced idea of the polymeter. So what I'm using is I'm using a 5 pattern and a 7 pattern going at once. So I try and figure out, okay, so when are they going to catch up? So if the simplest way you usually find is like the lowest common multiple of the 2. So you just multiply them together, 5 and 7. If they're both in 8, if they're both in the same kind of division, right? If one of them was a 4 pattern versus an 8 pattern, you need to get them into the same common terms. So this one is a 5/8 and a 7/8 together. So you multiply the 2, it's going to take 35 8 notes for it to catch up. So of 5/8, that's going to be 7 bars, and of 7/8, it's going to be 5 bars. So what I'm doing with this one is I've actually got the 5 bars there of 7 bars of 5/8. I've just notated like that in Guitar Pro because it doesn't let you do different notations across different tracks. They have to share the same the same time signature. But that's fine for me. It's probably easier for us to understand when we're looking at it anyway.
Yeah.
And so it's got the 7 bars of 5/4, and then it's got 1 joint bar of the 2 parts playing in 7. So you get this 8-bar pattern really almost happening. So you'll see here it's 7 bars of 5/8 and 1 bar of 7/8. I'll play it for you guys. Just the parts individually in case it doesn't come through so clearly here. There's a pattern, just a descending major 7 pattern on A major 7, G major 7, F major 7, and it goes like this in the 5 pattern. That last one's the 7 pattern, and there's a repeated like A ostinato in 7 over the top of it. So that one just repeats. That has a constant feel of 7. That one. It's just the 5/8 one that changes up for one of the bars. So I'll play it together. I think one of the important things is that when you're doing these polymeters or even polyrhythms, or even to extend it to just odd time signatures in general, you've got to leave someone a bit of time to latch onto it. I find if you're doing too crazy rhythmic modulation or metric modulation, like you'll hear in Dance of Eternity, for example, it works in that sense. But most people aren't going to be latched onto it first go. I like to have the time signatures where people can pretty much get onto it after a few repeats. So I do make sure I repeat the ideas and make it so it's actually a thematic thing to remember. You got any other examples of any polymeters you've done in your music?
Not so much polymeters. I do have some examples of sort of cycling time signatures and alternating time signatures, stuff like that.
Yeah, give us an example, man.
All right, let's get the screen share on again. All right, one of the other examples I have is a song called Cancer, which is going to be on the album. And it's the verse section, which is constantly a cycle of 7/8, 3/4, and 2 bars of 4/4. I don't know how clearly it'll come through, so I'll just play the guitar part first. So that's the whole feel as far as the guitar is concerned. I'll play it with the drums now.
Nice.
Yeah. It was interesting writing for this one because I came up, oddly for me as a drummer, I came up with the guitar part first. And so it was kind of a struggle at first to write a drum rhythm that matched that but also felt natural.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't feel that odd, surprisingly. It just sounds like if you're used to listening to a bit of math rock or something like that, it sounds pretty much in line with that. So it's not too jarring.
Yeah, it ends up rolling into each other, which I thought was nice.
And I guess you're repeating that time signature a few times, right? You're not just doing it once.
Yeah, that's right. That's the whole verse section. So it was also another. It was interesting writing a vocal melody over that too.
Yeah, that would have been.
Yeah. But I thought that was something good for people to keep in mind, that you don't need to stick to any one time signature. You can change them somewhat regularly, like what is happening here.
Yeah, I think that comes back to that idea of repetition helping out there, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a saying, like repetition legitimizes.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
Especially if you make mistakes.
Yeah.
Legitimize those mistakes. There's a couple of other examples like I think of where it's like really random time signatures, but the repetition helps remember it. There's one of Yes, one of the '80s songs.
Yeah.
Pretty much starts off this quite technical rhythmic modulation kind of thing, metric modulation, and then it turns into pretty much some police song after that. But there's a this as it goes. That part sounds quite jarring when you hear it, but after a while, even after a few repeats, because it's so repetitious there, it's doing, I think, some jumps between like 7 and 10 or something like that.
Yeah. Your ear gets used to it.
It gets used to it, right? So you're pretty much grooving out with it. And it's the most tacked on section to a song of all time when you hear it, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
I like that you mentioned metric modulation, actually. Do you mind if I show another example related to that? Yeah. This particular example, I don't seem to have the notation for it anymore, but it'll be easy enough to explain. It's actually a drum part that I wrote for my old band, Chimeria, that I used to play drums in. It's a song off of our EP called Senses. And basically, we're coming out of the chorus, which is in 4/4, but it does this little thing. I'll let you listen to it first, and then I'll explain it. Okay.
I remember that one.
Did that come through clearly enough?
Yeah, came through, yeah.
Yeah, so basically what's happening there is we're playing in 4/4, like I said, and then there's this unison rhythm. And then after that, I do a quick little fill that is one set of triplet crotchets. That becomes the eighth notes of 6/8 in a new tempo.
Yeah, that's one of those times, like unlike your Devil Wears Prada example, that's finding the exact tempo where I guess the 6/8 is the same as 4/4, right?
Yeah, I think
so 1.5 times or something like that, or 1 1/3 times.
Yeah, times 1.3 or something like that.
Yeah. I can't remember how you do it now. The maths is pretty simple though. I'm pretty sure it's 1.5 times. And
Yeah.
it's 2/3 to go back the other way.
Every time I go to do it, I always have to rework out how to do it.
Yeah, maybe it's 3/4. 3/4 and then 4/3. Yeah, 3/4 to turn it into 6/8, and then 4/3 to come back the other way. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, there. I haven't done that too much actually. I don't think I've actually ever put that into one of my songs where I'm doing that trick. I think I've heard that being done by Dragon Theatre as well back in the day, but I never tried doing it myself.
Yeah.
I kind of steer away from the tempo changes now. Like I had so many of them back when I was working on synthetic with Hermina back in the day, and I think just because there was things I didn't like about that album, I felt like I was trying a bit too hard to be technical at times, even though that wasn't my goal at the time, just in hindsight. So I kind of moved away from some of those more jarring things, just so you feel a constant groove throughout the song. So I'm not really doing too many tempo changes. Like sure, time signature changes galore, but not the tempo. Do you do that much? Do you doing the Devil Wears Prada much anymore?
Oh, like where it's right out of the blue?
Yeah.
No. The closest I get to doing it out of the blue, like as opposed to doing a metric modulation, the only other thing I'll do to change tempo is actually retardando or accelerando.
Yeah. That's fine.
Naturally, yeah.
That's more of a natural thing, right? It's just I guess we end up going to notating to go smaller or larger tempos, but yeah, I do that. But back in the day, I was doing like the chorus to be a different BPM, not in a simple relationship to the rest of the song, and then it would go back to another tempo, and then it would come back down to that tempo again. Like the song "Even in Heaven" was like that. There was some big changes between the tempos and the verses versus the chorus, and I don't know how we even ever played it to land on time. Really, I think we just felt it out after hearing the song enough. But that was a weird change, and it surprisingly didn't jar people as much as what I thought it would. I thought it was quite a strange change.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch on though, where we were speaking about the polymeter stuff, and I was trying to talk about finding that lowest common multiple, and then trying to wait for all of the different rhythms to catch up with each other. The one I did there with Hunting and Swim, they do catch up, and then I just do another bar of them joined together in a one common time signature. There's a pretty good example with Anubis, the song "All That Is." So that one is like that's a lot of different time signatures going at once. That's like that's 4/4 on the drums, 4 bars of 4/4. So if you calculate that in eighth notes, that's 32 eighth notes. And then there's a bass part which is in threes. So if you think about that in eighth notes, that's 6 eighth notes per set of 3/4. So try and fit as many of them within the common time of the drums. The drums is the thing keeping it kind of grooving. It's pretty much like you'll know the beat more than me. I don't think I could play it on you. It's pretty. Yeah, that's it. You got it, man. That's the 4/4, right? And then the bass again. Da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum, dum, da-dum. What's happening is it's playing 5 lots of the 3, and then got a 1/4 bar after that to catch up to fit in there. So you can do the metric polymeter stuff where you're not actually getting the full count of it and then restarting that phrase there, and that's what happens there. So and guitar wise, Dave and I are doing some different subdivisions of 7, but I'm doing like a so it's like 4 lots of 7 and then 4 eighth notes to add up to the 32 as well.
Yeah,
all these different cascading meters going at once. And mine's, if we wanted to keep playing it so they actually fully ended up, then you've got to end up multiplying 7 out with 6 out with 8. So it's going to be a lot longer to find the common multiple where 7 is going to be there with all of them. It would be a much longer pattern, and it would lose that effect. With it being just a pattern over 4 bars, it actually becomes quite hypnotic. You start to catch on to it after a while, and if you listen to the song a few times, you really will start to get up.
I think it helps with the sounds that you and Dave are using as well. Like they're not as they don't have as much transience as the bass and the drums.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
You still with I think a lot of it's to do with the ranges as well, because they're all separated in range. We're not getting in the way of each other. So the bass part is quite arpeggiated, and so is the guitars, but they're at least separated by probably 2 octaves.
Yeah.
Pad in the background, you don't really. I think that I don't even know if there is a pad actually. I think it's a bit more sparse in that part. It's definitely works there. So I think it's a lot to do with how you're orchestrating out the part. There's some other examples of the polymeter we're doing, like on Jimenez stuff back in the day. Some pretty I don't know how I can do double kicks for this keyboard. No, I can't do it. There's like this standard 4-note pattern. Fuck.
Oh yeah.
We have this pattern, right? It's 4 16th note kicks, where this is in Conceiver Plan. I think it comes back in Divine as well, where it's got this pattern. It's a three note pattern though. That kick thing, right? It's like 4 16ths, then a rest of an 8th note. So that'd be finished in three beats. But we have this thing where I think the snare and cymbals is doing like a, I'm going to do the cymbal sound here. So the snare that's in 4.
Yeah.
And it's going to do the 3/4 kick pattern underneath, and eventually catch up. And the idea is sometimes it's there in 3, sometimes it's there in 3, and sometimes it's there in 4. So it's kind of like this thing brought back, but developed and manipulated in a little bit of a different way than what you normally hear it. So let's see if I can give an example of it. Bear with me.
While you get that, is this more or less it?
That's pretty much it, man. You're a lot better at timing it than me with this keyboard. I can't fast enough. There's a yeah. I'll bring this up on screen. So this kind of groove is quite common in the song. Oh, that's some cheddar meaty right there. That's pure gorgonzola. That's in 4, but it's not really doing it's not the full pattern there. So
yeah.
Let me see if we can find it here. I'm sure it's yeah, you can see here. Okay, reinstating maiden chord. It's a great section name there, right? Very, very mechanical. But you can see this is written with Guitar Pro 5 drum notation, so it's gonna look a bit weird to people, and I don't have it as nicely written out as with the proper subdivisions that you had. This is more written as if it was like a drum sequencer where I'm giving one space for all the 16ths, just so you can visualize it graphically. Yeah. So you can see like the 4-note pattern there repeating, and that's the main rhythm. That's where it fits into 3, and you've got no polymeter happening there.
Yeah, that fits in nicely into that meter.
It fits in nicely, and I think it's after the second chorus where yeah. What a dickhead.
No. But I think I caught a glimpse of it. The rhythm comes back as triplets or something.
No, that was a different part.
Oh, okay.
Actually, that was a different. Some organ part. It's like that's pretty much a 12/8 bit actually.
Oh yeah.
This is
all right.
In 4 when it's time for polymetric time. What a fucking noob. So at this point here, you wouldn't be able to tell. It just sounds like it's a 4-note pattern.
Yeah.
The hats are starting on the kick divisions. Restarted by that.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-bar section for it to repeat over again. You can see them going.
That. Yeah.
You can see them carrying through 1, 2, 3, 4. Da, 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 da. That's where it would normally have ended the pattern, right?
Yeah.
So it's a 3/4 pattern playing over 4/4. So you think about what's the common divisor to get there. You need to multiply 4 and 3 together. It's going to take 12 quarter notes to get through.
Right.
And that's 3 bars of 4/4. How it's notated out. So that's the length of one sequence there.
Hmm.
That was like my first entry into it. I'm not saying it's like some advanced, cool, developed way of doing it. This is me in 2009 or something writing that. So
it really serves that song and the album as well, I think, though.
Yeah, no, it sounds really good. It's part of, like, I guess, one of the main rhythmic figures that comes back throughout the album to, I guess, link the very long 80-minute album together. So I'm still happy with it, but I guess I get a bit self-critical, like a lot of people do when you go back to your old work.
Yeah, yeah.
So we talked a lot about Polymeter, but have you got any examples of where you've used polyrhythms in your music? Because I don't think I've really used that many. I've used like some 3-against-2s where you've got like a 3 pattern and a 2 pattern together in the 1 bar. But like in terms of 5s against 4s or 7s against 4s, have you got any of that stuff in any of your music?
Not anything like that, really. No. Mostly just the 3-against-2 or the 2-against-3.
your example before, like where you were talking about playing in 6/8, right? And some people would misinterpret it as 3/4. If you
Yeah.
play, you play 3/4 and 6/8 with the proper accents over that, you're pretty much getting a 2/3 polyrhythm doing that, right?
Yeah. Actually, there's a Linkin Park song that does that. Maybe we should put it in the Spotify playlist.
Good song.
It was the last song on their Minutes to Midnight album. The Little Things Give You Away. The whole song's in 6/8, but during the first half of the song, the electronic percussion is playing in 3/4.
Okay, so you get the polyrhythm happening.
Yeah, it's only when the acoustic drums come in that you get a straight ahead 6/8 feel.
So I'm trying to think, what's the best way of doing this? You want to give an example of the 3/2, man?
Kind of hard to contextualize without two instruments, but
I think one of the things I often do is I try and look at what the composite rhythm is formed by the accents, right?
yeah,
You write out all of the, I guess the eight notes in a row, like, or
yeah,
against each other. You get like you can, I guess, just write 3 notes in a row, 3 notes in a row, and then put a two note accents there, so you get the, that's the composite. And you speed it up. That's in so much music, that thing. What's it called?
Yeah.
Hemiola? Hemiola? Yeah. I think I've used a few of those ones. I've used the 3/2s because it's in Haunting Me, I'm pretty sure I got a few of those.
Yeah, actually,
it just has a good swing to it usually. That
actually, I have an example of that here. One of mine that also fuses it with metric modulation.
Go for it, man.
Let's get the screen share again. This is another song that's going to be on the album. It's the Sleeping Song, and basically the whole first half of the song is in 6/8, but you get this lead line that fades in over the top. It's in 3/4, but then that figure continues on in a new tempo in 4/4. It ends up being the triplet quavers. It's actually a bit soft in this file, so I'll play it over the top.
I definitely hear that there, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, 6/8. You've essentially got semiquavers in 3/4, and they become so that's your 2/3 or 3/2, and that becomes also the triplet quavers in 4/4 of the new tempo.
Yeah. I'm preparing a quick example here of I guess the 4/5 feel.
4/5. Okay, cool.
Yeah, 4/5 polyrhythm, because I think it's probably important to see how. Well, that didn't sound quite right then. Wait, give me a second, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2.
Did you just mock this up?
Yeah, I did it on the fly now. Yeah.
Nice.
3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Sounding a bit monged up, if I'm allowed to say that. So I guess that there's when you have like 4/5 or 5/4, you're pretty much saying like you're keeping with this division of like this one is an example in 4. And I'm trying to get five notes to finish within the same period of time as 4 notes. I've done this across 2 bars of 4 just so it's not looking as squashed up. But pretty much the only way you can fit 4. Actually, if I took this here, wait a second. Oh, you piece of shit.
There you go, and then make them semiquavers.
Yeah. I've tied something up badly there.
Oh, wait. There we go.
Yeah, but oh no, I don't even what. Oh, 4. Spot my mistake, Reece. Where have I done it?
Let's see.
1, 2, 3, 4. That one. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think there must be an extra one before that last symbol.
Copy and paste there.
Yeah. There we go. That looks right. I think.
Really?
I
don't think so. It's supposed to be four couplets for each one, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is right. I just put the symbols in the wrong spot.
I think we're also missing the rest before the third symbol.
This one here?
Yeah, because that should be falling on the beat.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is trying to fit 4 beats and 5 beats, like a 4 and 5 idea, over the one bar. So this is where you're in 4, and 4 is I guess one of your dividers. Now you could do this another way. If you wanted to have it so it's grouped in 5/4, you could have it in 5/4, and then space out the notes with just 16th notes across the 5. So you'd put one 16th note every 5 notes there. So what you can sometimes do is you can find the composite rhythms that this actually builds, instead of splitting it out to one, just like kicks and snares like we've done there. You might actually I'll just do it so you get an example here. I'll put snares on every single hit. That way you can actually hit that gives you an idea. That's the composite rhythm there. So really, sometimes you can play like saying 4, and then you might have that composite rhythm over the top of it, or you might be playing 5/4, and you can do the composite rhythm of using the semiquavers there, and try orchestrating it out across other instruments where you're not just stuck in the one idea of playing across kick and snare. That's the obvious way of doing it.
Yeah.
And you can do this with any combination. And we spoke about the hemiola 3 against 2. That's quite common, but you can try doing it with 4 against 5. You can go very crazy. Actually, you can go 5 against 4, and then put this over 3 time signature.
Yeah.
You need to start using nested tuplets to do that, and probably not going to be in your next trap Drake wannabe song. So, well, although that being said, they use a lot of quintuplets in trap music, and
oh yeah,
I think it's just they just spam the closed hats on the quintuplets, and it sounds kind of dank, so they keep it there.
Do you want to hear an example of something I did like that?
Did you do exactly my approach? It's like 4's not dank enough, 3's not dank. Get that 5 in there.
Got an instance of quintuplets in something, and it also did spam closed hi-hats.
Oh, closed hi-hats, yes.
Yeah, all right. I'll put it. I think I showed this to you once upon a time. Actually, it called it quintessential because quintuplets.
Yeah.
Oh,
shit.
Yeah, boy. There it is.
Fuck, man.
I'll solo the drum so you can hear that glitchy goodness.
Quinting that bad boy. Dirty.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah,
That's pretty dense, bro.
Yeah.
These chords, they're dense. Whole chords.
Oh, yeah. The poly chords.
The Whittaker chords. I thought maybe one last thing we'll go into. We could talk about these each of these things in a lot more detail. And maybe you and I we'll do some broken down videos, like a video on 3, 4, 7, 8. Like each of the time signatures, and kind of talk a little bit more about what you can do with it.
And
but,
actually,
just to give you a good overview, really.
Yeah, and actually, in the meantime, I think if anybody was really interested in the polyrhythmic stuff, Adam Neely recently did a video.
Yeah, he did. He did the Ableton live video, right?
Yeah, there's like a section of it on his channel, but if you go into the description of that, you can find the whole video on Ableton's.
I didn't watch the whole video yet, actually.
It's really interesting. Really, really interesting.
I know he does a lot of that stuff, like the sped up rhythms equals chords, right, and that kind of stuff. It's pretty.
Yeah, some of that, yeah. Basically, he said that notes, pitch and rhythm are the same, and you can get chords out of polyrhythms, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of get what he means. Like, in a way, when you think about like two pitches that are like played next to each other, it's kind of like they're beating it. You even hear the term, they're beating against each other, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They beat against each other based on, I guess, what interval it is there. If you slowed it down to hear what actually beating is, the ratio of the beats against each other, it's just pretty much exactly like a polyrhythm, going in and out of tune with itself, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's pretty crazy how he's actually expanded it out to show you some real examples. And just, it looks like Ableton Live is actually a really good piece of software for quickly manipulating sound in the different time scales.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be able to do that quite so easily in Cubase, or at least I haven't really practiced doing that. But there's one last thing I thought we could go over before we wrap it up, and this is inspired a lot. I guess I went and saw this festival in Parramatta on Saturday. I was really inspired by seeing it. There's a band from Mali, like this desert rock band called Tanara, when that was playing there, and they were doing a lot of really cool polyrhythm stuff, heaps of 5/4 composite rhythm stuff on one of the traditional percussion instruments.
Yeah.
And that was blowing my mind. It was like hypnotic because it was so repeated, and you really got into the groove of it. It was like a really good four to the floor kind of rhythm when he's playing, but you also got those really off composite rhythms. But then after them, Hiatus Cody played, and they took it to a whole new level. The drummer in that band, he has totally nailed the neo soul kind of sloppy, wonky drum thing. He's an absolute beast. Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff where it feels like it's a straight beat and swinging, but it's not triplet swing like everyone would normally hear it. But you got to.
Is it like a quintuplet swing?
Yeah, quintuplet swing. That they're doing heaps of that, and I think septuplet swing. So I just wanted to give a quick example of what this is, and people can have an experiment with it themselves, and it might start to inspire them. So I've just done a very, very basic example of a couple of beats here. Normally, a lot of times, if people have played jazz, like a lot of times you'll see stuff written as straight eighth notes all the time, but there'll be a swing marker at the top. And what it tells you is when you see 2 eighth notes, you play them as pretty much two eighth note triplets. So one note lasting 2 eighth note triplets, and then one note lasting normal eighth note triplet. So you get this ratio of 2 notes to 1 note. It's like that. I'll do it with the drum instead.
Yeah.
It's very, very common. That's like a shuffle, right?
Yeah.
But this kind of stuff, this R&B, neo soul stuff that's going on now, that big movement with it, kind of taken from some of the sequence drums, like some guys like Jay Dilla. I don't know if you heard him before. I've listened to him for does some really, really crazy like hip hop kind of beats.
Yeah.
And I think he just used to play it based on trying to sound like pretty much like a drunken drummer, but I think people have taken it a bit further and started to put theory against it. So I'll just give you an example of what the normal triplet swing sounds like that we're doing. That's a pretty standard sound to a lot of people, right? It's just that 110 BPM.
Yeah.
That's just that standard triplet bounce that you're used to hearing. So what they're doing in these neo soul stuff is instead of breaking up into triplets, we're breaking up into quintuplets, and the ratio no longer goes from 2 notes to 1 note in the 8th note. It's splitting the 5 up, so you get 3 and 2. So it's like almost if you counted quintuplets over the whole thing, 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. It's 1 2 3 4 5. So you get this.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
You get this jerky sound, right? And if you choose to throw in some kicks in normal straight feel over the top of this, you'll really get some wonky stuff. If you listen to any lo-fi hip hop stuff online, any like just chill channels on YouTube or Spotify, a lot of vaporwave stuff doing this as well now, where you got the straight feel of something underneath. I can't even play it with my hands, the straight feel with quintuplets. I think you really need to sequence it and get it under your hands before you do it. But I just want to show you an example. That sounds like what it fits. You can hear this is the same division. This is if you could write this out with different swing notation if you wanted to, with as quintuplets instead of triplets, and it'd be a bit. I think it'd be a bit advanced to do that. So it's just easy to spell it out with the quintuplets here.
Yeah.
And it's the same groove. The kick and the snare here is exactly the same as the other one. It's the same tempo. It's just where we're dropping those hats to feel the swing is different. So quickly show you the 3 again. Now 5. That's got a much different swagger to it.
Yeah.
It feels wonky, but to me, from hearing them playing on stage, and they're probably playing at some just say it faster BPMs, right? I'll go 135 or something. You feel heaps of this stuff where you're getting heaps wonky with what you're doing, even without. You feel like it's quite crazy mathematically what's going on, but it does make you bob, and it makes you dance to it. It's got a really good feel to it.
It's still got that emphasis on the beat that you can nod your head to.
Yeah, it depends how crazy and off kilter you go with what you're doing on the kicks and snares to divide it out. But this is the common way I hear it. I hear they start doing fills on the quintuplets as well, right? Just so you can actually fully feel the 5 groove at times, the 5 grid.
Yeah.
But I also heard the more subtle kind of form in septuplets as well. So instead of breaking like in the triple example with a 2-to-1 ratio and 3-to-2 in the quintuplets, you've got a 4-to-3. So it's like an even more subtle swing. And this one you can hear it against I'll keep the metronome on so you can hear it, and you can really hear it kind of almost getting like a rhythmic dissonance with what's going on with the click.
Yeah.
So that one there, I'll turn the metronome off. So that one there feels just off at that time, at that tempo 135, which I brought up to. Let's bring it back down to 110 and see what it feels like. That's really pulling that sound.
Yeah.
But to me, that's opened up a whole new avenue of possibilities with composing rhythm, because I never go into this. I'm always a triplet or 16th note guy, usually on the grid. I'll do dotted stuff, obviously, but it's still staying in that world of divides by 3 or 4 usually.
Yeah.
And I thought one of the things I don't see is in non-tuplets. Maybe some people will start doing this in 9s. So yeah, have a listen to how that one sounds like. That's just ever so slightly out there, because this is now 5-to-4 with the. Yeah. So it's you could mathematically lock this in, but it's got a slightly different groove. Cool. I think that's pretty cool. Someone write something like that if they haven't done it already.
Do you mind if I share some bonus material for the drummers out there?
Yeah, of course, man.
I find that when you're first trying to get into tuplets, most likely quintuplets are the ones you're going to get into first, beyond triplets. And that's what I usually start off my drum students off on. So this is actually a resource that I give to my students that I made up. It's an example of that drum swing you were talking about, but with some ghost notes and stuff.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
That's cool, man.
And also this sort of stuff with the hi-hat playing more like eighth notes.
That's definitely going for more of like a fusiony sound where it's a bit busier.
Yeah, and if you want to hear some music that is written with that sort of stuff specifically, like really emphasized, I know Adam Neely's band Sungazer has done at least 1 or 2 quintuplet stuff, as well as there's a drummer who I'm pretty sure had an EP dedicated to music almost solely in quintuplets. Her name is Anika Nils or Anika Nillies. Definitely check out her music. Yeah.
All right, man. You reckon you can make that resource available for people? We can link it at the bottom of our video.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, that about wraps up. That was a pretty long one. I hope everyone learned something from this. And if there's anything you want us to tackle in more detail in the future, I'm sure Reece I could speak for hours about this one. So.
Oh yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Eric Whitaker for his eternal inspiration.
Thank you, Eric Whitaker.
Let's get some polys on.